Okay, the translations and reflections quiz is tomorrow, and so we're doing a little review here. So to begin with, somebody suggested, when I asked, what kind of questions would be on this quiz? They said, I bet you will do one where there's a graph that's been moved and you will ask us to tell what the equation is for it. All right, I agree. Something like that is definitely the type of thing we'd expect. Let's say that spot is at 1 comma negative 2. You can tell it's been moved over 2 or over 1 and down 2. Would you tell me the equation that would go with that? It's a ramp shape that's been flipped and moved. I'll pause for a second, and then I'll let you come up with another question that you think I might ask on the quiz. Okay, you should have been thinking, all right, I think that's the ramp shape. And the ramp shape is the square root of x. Raise your hand if you started right. Okay, good. Then does it look to you like it's been flipped? Is it a horizontal or a vertical? Vertical, and the vertical stuff is a vertical on the outside, as opposed to a high horizontal on the inside. That's a vertical on the outside. Raise your hand if you had the negative in the right spot. Okay, good. And then the last part is it should be moved right 1 and down 2. Raise your hand if you had the right total final equation. Okay, awesome. Any questions on that one? Okay, so that was a good suggestion. What else do you think? What else have we covered? Type of question. I mean, I can always fill some in, but I'd rather have you guys tell me. Yes. Domain and range. Agreed. So let's say that we have, well, you know what? Let's just do that one. What's its domain and range? You can, if yours wasn't right, you can look at mine for the problem. And problem 2, we'll do for review, is what's the domain and the range of that graph right there. Pausing. All right, so domain. That's from left to right. That's x stuff, because x runs from left to right. Okay. How far left will this thing go? Careful on this. Is it the 1 or the negative 2? It's the 1. Good. Does it touch at 1? Bracket on the 1. Comma. How far does it go to the right? Very good. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Awesome. Next one, range. How low does it go? Negative infinity to how high will it go? Negative 2. And you got to be careful on that. By accident, a lot of people think it's 1. The height of it, the highest it goes, is the negative 2. Okay. Oh, what? I made a little mistake. Did you catch me?
It's not negative infinity.
Oh, it's not. Nope. If that wasn't my mistake, it is negative infinity. When you're talking low, down here, really low, isn't that negative infinity? That's how low it goes, is way down here. And down there is negatives, negative infinity. So it is negative infinity. That's not my mistake. What's my mistake? Yes. Bracket on the negative 2 because it touches at negative 2. Okay, good. Give me another type of question that you think might be on there. And if you don't know how to do it, that might be a good thing to suggest. Is like, I had this one on the homework, but don't give me an exact problem off the homework, but tell me something like it. Mr. Yes. So I give you an equation and you have to graph it? I agree. All right. With what in it, do you think? Ooh, okay. Let me see if this is what you meant, because this would be a good thing to practice. That is something you'd be expected to graph. All right. And then you could even do something different with it. Instead of saying graph it, I'm going to say A is graph it. I like that. But I could also say B, move it 4 to the right of where it is now, and tell me that equation. So it's already been moved to the left from, like where it was. But take this one and move it 4 to the right, and then tell me what its equation would be now. Okay, so do both parts. First, make a graph of it. The graph needs a few important points, like you may want to check with an XY chart to see if you're doing it right. Because if all you do is a sketch and you don't have any defined points, you can't get it right. typically we want 5 points graphed. And I'll tell you on the day of the test how many are required. Some graphs you can only fit like 3 on there, but you got to have dots. You can't just have, oh, I think it's over here. That's a sketch. You will have graph paper on the day of the test, and I apologize that you don't right now. If you want to do an awesome job, why don't you use a way to add paper? You can add graph paper. Did you know that? Like right now on your iPad, under Notability, you can add a piece of graph paper if you want to do a really quality job on that. I'll pause for a second while you try that. Suggested on this one that you graph it. The first thing I would do is, in my head, picture where this thing is. Mr. N, could you shut that door for us? Thank you. And if I'm going to graph this, I got to know it's a parabola to start with, which kind of looks like this. You can even graph the parent points of a parabola. Really easy. Starts here, goes over 1, up 1, over 1, up 1, over 2, up 4, because I'm squaring, right? Over 2, up 4, and there, I've got my 5 points. And if you take that from there and move it the right places, we'll be good. All right, so what should I do? I said start on the inside. If you start on the inside, you would move it 2 to the left, correct? Okay, so I'm going to move this 2 to the left. Everything goes over 1, 2 spots to the left. All right, let me think what that was over 2. Yeah, that was like that. Okay, now you're supposed to move to the outside. And what's that? Vertical flip, good, or a reflection is the official name. And it goes like this. So now it's like this. There, now it's flipped. And I got my 5 important points. And then the last thing is, what's that plus 3? Up 3. So I take every one of those red dots and move it up 3. Now I'm going to get this green stuff out of here just because it's not needed anymore. So this goes up 3. There. Now that is not perfect because I don't have graph paper. But if I wanted to be absolutely sure I did it right, what did I tell you is your best friend on graphing? XY chart. And I know some of you are going to just think, well, I know I did it right. Well, double check yourself. So it's not that hard to double check. So do you get that I'm generally in the left area here? So if I'm going to check things, I should probably check things that are like negatives for X, or maybe 0. Right. So if I'm going to take my XY chart, I'm going to put in 0. 0 is a nice number. Put in 0. I get 2. 2 squared is 4. Then I make it negative, makes negative 4. Negative 4 plus 3 makes negative 1. 0 comma negative 1. If I actually make that dot, it would be right here. And looks like I got a dot there. Yay. Okay. Now I'm going to try something like, let's say, negative 4. If I put in a negative 4, negative 4 plus 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is 4. Then I make it negative, makes it negative 4 plus 3 makes it negative 1 again. And I just found a mistake. You see how this dot looks like it's right on the axis? It's supposed to be at negative 4. It's supposed to be down 1. So I wasn't careful, and I caught myself. And there, I just saved myself a point on the test. You get the idea? You got to be careful, and the XY chart helps you to be careful. And if you end up getting points that are like over here, you can be like, wait a minute, I did it all wrong. And people catch themselves all the time by using their XY chart. Okay. One more thing on the XY, just, if somebody was asking about how do you do that, all you do is pick numbers, and you could pick anything. I'm just saying be smart about how you pick them. You don't have to just pick random things. Pick things that are targeted, like, I think I should pick negatives. So I put in a negative 1 here. I put in a negative 1. Negative 1 plus 2 makes 1. 1 squared is 1. Make it negative 1 because of that. Negative 1 plus 3 would be positive 2. And negative 1 comma positive 2 better be a point on my graph. Negative 1, positive 2. There it is. It's right on my graph. That point was good. All right. There's XY charts. Here, all it is move it 4 to the right. So I take this equation I had and move it 4 to the right. Does that mean minus 4 or plus 4? Minus 4 means to the right, right? So I go minus 4 here. Now I'm going to rewrite my original problem just because it's really messy right now. So I'm going to rewrite what I had up there. I had y equals negative x plus 2 squared plus 3. And if I do negative 4, that would be in here. You just put that in with the other stuff and see what you have. Yes, sir?
Would it be -2?
Just hold on. We already have the plus 2, and we're going to get that answer. Just wait. Do you see that that's where I should put the negative 4? Does that make sense to you that that's kind of on the inside there is where the right goes? Then let's get the final answer by actually adding this all together. X and what's plus 2 and minus 4 make? -2 squared plus. The blue one is your final answer. Right there. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, good. I didn't say you had to, but if you had to, it wouldn't be too hard because we just have to move it 4 to the right. So we would take our parabola here and move it 4 to the right, which would be pretty easy. Yes? Okay. You know what? You do that differently than most kids do, but it kind of ties into the next question that we're talking about here, which is if I had this and I asked you to take that f of x, and what you do that a lot of kids don't do, and I saw it on your test before, is you made a list of the parent points that are on the test, and it's a good thing. I like it. If you make a list of exactly where those points are, then you do this special thing that I don't think most people do, which is to try to trust the, not trust the inside, and I don't think we need to do that on this kind. I think all we need to do is if f of x is this red one, looks kind of like that, okay, then what would this be? Would you please graph me g of x if it's really made up of f of x minus 2 plus 5? Try to figure out what the graph should look like now. See, if I'd have just said move it this way and move it that way, I think it'd be easier. But that's not what we're going to do. We're going to give it to you in some unusual way of saying move it to the left and move it down or whatever. I just showed you which way to move it by saying that. Now, if I wanted to do this with an XY chart, I could. I just think it's harder. Because if I do it with an XY chart, I got to figure out where all the parent points are in the first place, make a big list of them, and then that takes a long time. And then I have to take all of those points and move them. And then, yes, we would not trust the stuff on the inside. And so instead of minus 2, we would add 2 to all of the x numbers. And then on the outside, we can trust it. And therefore, we're going to say, let's move the thing up 5 so that all the y numbers would have to go up 5. I think it's just easier to take each of these dots. And what does this minus 2 mean? Right 2. And I take them all the dots and move them to the right 2. And what does this outside 5 mean? Up 5. So if I take all my dots and move them right 2 and up 5, right 2, up 5. Take this dot, move it right 2, up 5. This dot, move it right 2, up 5. And this dot, right 2, up 5. And then I just have to connect my dots. Did you have something like that? All right, good. These have all been good suggestions on what types of things we've done that you could expected to be tested on. Any other suggestions? Oh, yeah, that's for the order of operations. Yes, let's talk about that. It's about what order should you do stuff in. All right, so let's say I had this one. Now, on this test, you could be expected to graph that, or you could be expected to tell me what changes I asked for. Well, there's a right order to tell me those changes. It's 4 changes to this graph. The parent in the first place was x squared, which is a parabola. And then what do you do to it? Remember me telling you there's A, B, C, and D? Try to figure out if it's CBAD, or is it BCDA, or is it ACBDA? Now I'm just making stuff up. Mr. AE, how do we start? We start in the middle for sure. And how do you know it's B? What's your thinking process between B and C? Yes, this is true. And B does go first. I don't want to confuse you by what I say next. So I'll just say, yeah, right. I start with B. Does somebody have another way they could have told me how to pick between those two? Yes. Yep. Normally you'd start with parentheses. Very good. Right. Because you don't trust don't trust what's on the inside, you don't start with the parentheses. And therefore you must start with B. Once you're done with B, obviously you have to do C. And then what are the other 2 things? Is it AD or DA? AD. Very good. You can trust the stuff on the outside, and multiplying comes before adding and subtracting. So A gets B first, and then D is last. Now, what are the official names for these things? That would be something that you'd be tested on. So why don't we see if you can, say it right. If you say flip up, down, I can't give you credit for that. But if you say that officially the right way, okay, so what is B? I'll give you a start. It's horizontal because it's on the inside, but everybody write out what BCDA really mean. Horizontal what? And don't write it down. Write it down on your paper. The official name for that is a horizontal something. And then number 2, the second thing we do is the other thing on the inside. Don't worry, you don't have to get too fancy. Up and down or just up and down, and left and right or just left and right. You don't have to describe them as a horizontal shift to the right of 2 if you think you want to move right 2. Yes? Is the review not in the folder? Can you double check that? We'll look in, not the homework folder, look in the other folder and see if it's there, okay? I think the key is there. You know, there's a folder under homework, and there's always a folder under the just general course. Is it there? Did you find it in the other folder or not? Yes. Okay. All right, I'm going to pause for a second. Fix that right now. So here we go. Number 1 is a horizontal reflection. Some of you are confused right now because you're still talking when I'm talking, and that's really a bad combination. Thank you. Okay, here we go. Number 2 is the stuff on the inside is the other thing on the inside is right, no, left, 2. And then the third thing, we go to the outside, that is a vertical reflect. And then the last thing is up 8. Raise your hand if you had them in the right order. Okay, good. That's important. Yes. Question?
What's the translation then?
Okay, a translation would be something to the left or to the right. Those are translations. If you wanted to say translation left 2, you could.
Oh.
You don't have to use the word translation. Yeah. Yes.
How come you would vertically flip it before you went over 2?
We did vertically flip it, but we did it right before we did up 8. Here's why. You should get stuff done on the inside first before you move to the outside.
Oh.
Yes.
Could you just say like reflection over a y-axis and then
Yes, I am okay with that, but I think it's easier, honestly, to say stuff on the inside is horizontal, stuff on the outside is vertical. I have so many people say the wrong axis by accident. They mean vertical, but then they say reflect over the y, and it's not the y. I think you're more likely to get it right if you say vertical or horizontal. But it's your choice. You can say reflect over this axis. Just be sure you're right about which axis it is. Okay. Let's see. We've got, let's see. What else was on the little mini quiz that we gave you? We took shapes and moved them. We did that. We talked about those. Domain and range we did. We've talked about pretty much everything. So I think this would be a good time to just give you more than usual time to work today. So we have a practice quiz, and you have the rest of the time to work on it. The practice quiz is reflections review, translations and reflections review. I would strongly recommend doing it and checking it against the key. And again, if the key is not posted right away here, we will get one posted this evening. Because it's right before a test, it's important for us to get a good key up. Now, if I find out that the only thing that's wrong with the key is like 2 problems are different, then I'll tell you what a lot of them are different. Okay, then I will get you a correct key.
Is it the review one?
Yes, it's called Review for Translations and Reflections. All right, work on that. If you need help, bring it up. Have some time to work.